Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Red Tinted Glasses podcast. I'm live. It's just me, myself, and I tonight. Phil is down at the game. Callum tried to get to the game, but he is at the Panto instead. No, really, he is. I know our episodes have been a bit sporadic, of course, over the festive period, but such is the way of trying to pull together an episode between work and seeing family, and also a few of us being down with this cold/flu that seems to have been downing most people throughout the festive period. So I'm coming on tonight just to give some thoughts ahead of the Dons taking on Hibs at Easter Road tonight. The team news has not long been announced. We'll go over that. I'll speak about the game against Dundee United on the 27th as well. Very briefly, because really I could probably put you to sleep as much as that game did itself as well. A very poor 1-1 draw against a Dundee United team that really made me glad. Jim Goodwin is no longer our manager. With the style of play that they came up, it was very much conducive of they were not keen to take 3 points. Probably the more disappointing then in once again that we shot ourselves in the foot in the concession of the goal. Nicky Devlin, again, responsible, a very uncharacteristic mistake, but for as much as he makes the mistake again, similar to how Nicky Devlin defended against St Mirren, Jack Milne not covering himself in glory, allowing Fata to run into the box instead of, maybe pushing him out towards showing him the line and narrowing the angle. And I took my sister to her first Aberdeen game, and she said at halftime, "Why is our keeper quite shit? Does he not know what he's doing?" I'm not really portioning much blame onto Mitov, but yeah, his dive and stop, maybe not covering the whole goal in glory as well. Again, just all round another poor goal to concede from an Aberdeen point of view. The encouraging point, I suppose, from that game is how we responded. In that sense, in the second half, it very much felt like an onslaught, and I do think we got our deserved equaliser, and it's disappointing that we couldn't go on to get all three. Probably over the piece, a draw was a fair result. For me, Adil O'Sheesh once again standing out in that Aberdeen team. A bit question marks on why he was taken off. And I know Jesper Karlsson's performance has certainly sparked debate amongst the Aberdeen support about what he offers. And yes, I'll admit I was one that was getting a little bit frustrated with his one too many step overs at times. And also a bit frustrated with our striking play once again. Kevin Nisbet, maybe a little bit anonymous, excuse me, but I think that's very difficult in this current formation. And the way that we've been set up. Marko Lazic has come into the starting lineup tonight, which I'll come on to. And I think it's a tough task for either player leading the line right now when they've not got the service or support, which I think was lacking in that sense as well. And I think one thing from the weekend's game where Jimmy Tilleen's come out and addressed that centre back feels a priority. I think anyone watching that game at the weekend will probably feel a little bit of creativity is maybe much more of a priority than a centre back. Despite the mistakes that we continue to make. I also feel maybe an out-and-out striker that knows where the back of the net is. I don't maybe doubt that Kevin Nisbet and Marko Lazic do know that, but I feel there's something missing with both currently in their play. Now, we'll come on to the game tonight. Aberdeen have made 4 changes, as you'll see from the ticker on the bottom. I'll put the lineup on screen as well. Oh, blocks me out perfectly. I was hoping that would be a little bit bigger on screen. Hopefully, it's still readable for most of you that are tuned into this. As I said, 4 changes. Marko Lazic coming in for Kevin Nisbet. Kjartansson, I'm just going to say that, is coming for Dante Polvara. That's really no surprise based on Dante's performance at the weekend as well. I'm really excited to see what the Icelandic man can do, getting his first start. We've seen in pre-season games and in glimpses, really, both at Parkhead and at Saturday, that he brings a little bit of composure on the ball. And I think certainly in his 2 cameos in the league, certainly gives me faith that he can fill Dante Polvara's boots, but has looked a bit more assured than Dante Polvara. I think Polvara was very poor against Dundee United, so no real surprise to see him drop out. And of course, a lot of talk around whether or not he'll still be here come the end of the January transfer window. Of course, tonight's opponents is a linked destination for the American, maybe also playing a part in his omission from the starting 11. Gyamfi coming in for Graham Shinnie, and I'm glad we've continued to stop that experiment of Toby Keskinen at right wing back as Alexander Jensen comes into his natural position to fill in there. Not that I thought Toby had a bad game on Saturday. I think it just helps when you have more naturally gifted players in those positions playing them. So maybe a bit of an experimental lineup from Jimmy Tilleen, but a lineup that I quite like the look of. No Dylan Lobin, despite returning from suspension. He misses out. I've seen a few things on social media saying that he's rested for the game. And again, he's still a young player. His minutes do need to be managed well. I suppose looking at the subs bench, having a look there, Nick Suman, the backup goalkeeper, Helton Nielsen, you've got Milanovic, Bilalovic, Polvara, Shinnie. The biggest, I guess, glaring omissions are the fact that there's no Leighton Clarkson or Ante Palaversa. Again, speaking with the January transfer window opening in a couple of days' time, those two players' futures at the club, I suppose question marks reign over that, and if that is going to be two likely departures alongside Kusini Yengi as well, that remains to be seen. Let's get to some of the comments that have come in. Bob Duff clearly not happy. Still 3 at the back nonsense, but at least Kjartansson starts. I thought it was actually quite interesting as well on that comment that it is still the back 3 with 2 wing backs, given Jimmy Tilleen's comments in between games saying that he is eager to move to a back 4 sooner rather than later. And there was certainly talk that we could have seen a back 4 tonight against Hibs, but he's stuck with the back 3. And I do think against this Hibs teams, it probably does suit better, and it does suit us better, certainly away from home, to try and have that press and play that attacking football that we hopefully want to see. Mr. Sheep King probably hoping he doesn't, but predicting that Jamie McGrath is going to haunt us again. Hopefully he has a quieter game than he did at the weekend against Hearts. Paul Donaldson, good to have you along, Paul. As always, when I jump on these lives, even at short notice, you've still managed to get along. I don't know if maybe you're actually at the game or in the pub pre-match. Your question here, if we can't get a striker in the January window, is it worth bringing Alfie Bavic back from loan? I think the fans have more faith in Alfie Bavic having a future at the club than those behind the scenes, from my understandings. It's certainly worth the question. I suppose the other questions will be around loan players coming back. Finlay Marshall, of course, and does he have a future in terms of pressing for a place in that starting 11? For me, around Finlay Marshall, I'm kind of keen to see him stay at Arbroath and develop, given the prominence of Adil Oshish into that role in midfield, and hopefully now the emergence of Kjartansson as well. We've got Graham Shinnie that can play in there. Nielsen, if he stays. Polvara, if he stays. Palaversa, if he stays. We seem blessed in that midfield area. I think Alfie's an interesting one. He'll be jumping up 2 divisions. It's a bit of an ask, but do we have the faith in Alfie Bavic to do that? I personally don't think we do, based on what we've seen just now as well. Can't be bothered saying if we would just play 2 up front, I'm sure Lazetic and Nisbet could form a good partnership. Ironically, I thought at the weekend when we played both of them, we looked even worse when we just had 1 up top. But I don't think that's an unfair point to say that if we actually allowed them to form a partnership, it could be successful. And I think that maybe is in the back of Jimmy Tilleen's thinking. If we can move to that back 4, it would allow a partnership to be formed up top. And I certainly think, Kevin Nisbet was tireless in some of his running on Saturday, but nobody either picked the pass or found him in the space. So I think a lot of the work that he was doing was going a little bit unnoticed. I'm not too sure on the Esther Sockler recall, but again, he's a player that's scoring out on loan as well just now. So that'll be interesting to see if that is a possibility and if we can um, bring Esther back. Depends again if he's a player that's in favour. Let's look at the Hibs lineup for the game tonight. I suppose the biggest omission from their starting lineup that featured against Hibs will be Kieran Bowie missing out completely from the squad as well, as is Nicky Cadden, who went off injured, I think, in the first half at the weekend as well. Obviously, you kind of know what you're going to get from Hibs. You've got the pace there of Collegiate. Boyle will bring pace as well, and they've got the engines in midfield in Mulligan and Josh Campbell as well. And of course, I think, fitting that they use Jamie McGrath as their player in the promo of the lineup as well. We all know what he brings to a side, and certainly his recent displays are going to bring question marks on why we let him go as well. I do think within that back four that Hibs have, O'Hora and Hanley are obviously players that we can get at and hopefully can exploit. I don't think they're the best defensively. Again, I think Saturday showed that they were 3-0 up and cruising, and then really kind of self-imploded defensively and allowed Hibs to have 7 shots on target in the last 20 minutes. Salinger, yes, pulled out a couple of good saves in that last 20 minutes, but I thought from what I watched of the game in the opening 45, 50 minutes, he also looked a little bit suspect at times as well. So, I certainly think Hibs defensively are there to be got at, and I think, going back to our lineup, the way we're set up there, hopefully, Jesper Karlsson can bring that pace. Would I have maybe liked to seen Keskinen in there for some pace on the other side? Yes. But I think he likes to drift in too much. Sometimes so does Jesper Karlsson as well. Gyamfi probably offers us a bit more pace than Graham Shinney does as well. And Stuart Armstrong, we've seen him drift out to the left-hand side a few times in games and play well. Personally, I didn't think he was as bad as a lot of people are saying on Saturday, and I do think he is one of our better players in terms of the quality he brings, not only on the ball, but in terms of moving us up the pitch as well. So I'm really excited to see what he can do linked up with Kjartansson and Aushish, and that midfield battle I think is going to be really intriguing tonight. And obviously Kjartansson getting his first start against a quite experienced Hibs midfield, certainly experienced for the Scottish Premiership. At home as well, I'm sure buoyed by that victory over Hearts. And looking to kick on from that. Obviously, we got that point at the weekend, still sitting within the top 6, and I think this is a huge game. Not only given that we then play Falkirk at the weekend before that double header against Rangers, but a huge game in the sense that if we can go out where maybe a few of us amongst the fan base aren't particularly confident of 3 points, but if we can go out there and get those 3 points, it sets us up nicely for those 3 games in 10, 11 days to start 2026, because I think it'll draw us level on points with Hibs and then continue to look up, obviously, with that game in hand and really cement that place within the top 6 to build on going into that January transfer window, where I think it's fair to say additions do need to be made to the squad. And I think it's likely that we will see a handful of departures as well, whether that's some permanent as well as some loan moves. I'm really intrigued to see how quickly we move to make some of that business within the early parts of the window as well, given the importance, I think, of the 3 games really to start the year, of course, before we then host Wraith in that Scottish Cup tie as we begin the defence of that trophy. I'll be like Dave Cormack. I won't miss an opportunity to mention, of course, that we're Scottish Cup holders. So yeah, I thought I would jump on and give some thoughts going into the game tonight. Of course, there's a few of you watching. If there's anything you want to ask or any thoughts that you have as well, drop a comment as well. We can address some of those thoughts. Like John Kilo has about Hibs playing their fastest players up front, potentially daunting, yes, against an Aberdeen defence that, apart from the wing back areas, is relatively unchanged. And again, I know a few people have picked up on Mats Knuster's. I think it's a bit harsh calling him having a lack of pace, or him looking maybe a bit tired against Dundee United. And again, we've not had the luxury of being able to rotate him out or rest him where possible, due to obviously our fixture schedule, but also the fact that he's our best player currently right now, and I think he's going to be cruising along to Player of the Year unless something drastically changes in the meantime. So hopefully I haven't jinxed him, and hopefully he continues to have another solid display again tonight, and hopefully so does everybody else in red. But in particular, that forward area is really where I'm hoping to start seeing things click, because I do feel that we do have a very tiresome job for whoever leads the line for Aberdeen right now, whether it be Marco Lasnic and whether it be Kevin Nisbet. And I don't think it does help us continuously changing that lone striker week in, week out. Interesting, another point, the game being refereed tonight by Daniel McFarlane, his first time in charge of an Aberdeen game in the Premiership. Those of you in attendance at the Ipswich friendly will remember his refereeing performance. I think it's the first time I'm going to have been watching an Aberdeen game where the referee was 2 years below me at school. So yeah, that's a real interesting one. Hopefully, considering what we've seen from some of the up and coming referees, we're not sitting here talking about referees and VAR come full time. And speaking of full time, depending on the result, I may or may not jump back on at full time to give my thoughts on the game. As I said, Phil's down the road, Callum's at the Panto, so it will just be me on my lonesome again. If we do that, if not, I'll maybe try and jump on after Hogmanay and get some thoughts ahead of the game against Falkirk. Obviously, they're in action tonight. Near enough a full card in the Scottish Premiership tonight, only Hearts, given they moved their game forward earlier. I can't remember who that was against. So they're not playing in action tonight. But yeah, good to have some footballs to fill the void tonight on TV. I'll be flicking. I'm sure some people will also be having the darts on as well. So let's hope that we can go out there and continue this run in the Premiership, hopefully with 3 points to celebrate the end of 2025, because it's been a very much up and down year on the pitch. Our home form has been far from excellent. We've done better, certainly in recent times, on the road as well. Let's hope that continues tonight. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me on this very brief pre-match preview. I was trying to keep it going until the Red TV coverage started at past, but I think 20 minutes close enough has been good going. So thank you very much to everyone that has joined us here on the YouTube channel live. We're just 2 subscribers away from 2,500, so it'd be great if we could tick that box off ahead of the new year. But if not, we'll be back in 2026 with all things Aberdeen here on Red Tinted Glasses. Until then, we'll see you then.